Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday edition of the Hawg Talk podcast presented to you by Vision Exteriors. Tonight's show, we'll talk Arkansas, Houston, a little high school reclassification. We'll touch on Harding, their state or national championship game against Fair State, and we'll talk about Cinderellas. Are they good or bad for college basketball, and comparing it to the you should say Cinderellas in college football. But Arkansas has a big game coming up on Saturday against Houston, coming off a big win against Queens. Looking at this Houston team, they are currently, I got their schedule up.
10-1.
One on the year. Lone loss was to Tennessee, 76-73 to Tennessee. But they've played Florida State, and I thought they played somebody else. Auburn, they beat Auburn by 73-72, and then Mississippi State to start off the season, 61-52. Huge game. Big thing I noticed when you're looking at the stats right there, the second one. Houston is giving up 57.7 points a game. This will test Arkansas offensively. We're going to see, we're talking about them games where somebody's going to step up. I think this is going to be one of them games where Brazil needs to show up and Knox needs to show up. Somebody that normally doesn't. Let's see how the freshman, see what shape Malik Thomas is in, see how Darius Acuff handles this. But, Adam, this is going to be a big game on Saturday.
The points against with Houston is, I think, going to be the biggest thing. Can Arkansas score, I feel like, 70-plus in this game to make Houston uncomfortable? You're going to have multiple players step up. I think that over the last two games, Malik Thomas has struggled in a sense, not necessarily getting shots up, but shots going in. So this is something that I'm hoping that he's got it out of the system. Get away from Fayetteville for the weekend, get up there to New York. I mean, prime slot, 4:30 in the afternoon, but on CBS, it's going to be a big game. I hope we continue to see the Brazil that we've been seeing over the past couple games. My fear, and this just goes from how things have been in the past when it comes to Arkansas, is, they've had a couple of hot games when it's came to the 3-point, and I just hope that we don't see them go cold in this game on Saturday.
Big thing is, how do they defend Brazil? Do they allow him get to the corner? And that's his spot. I really want to see how they game plan against Arkansas in this game. Very similar. You throw the stats up, and we're talking about the Texas Tech game on how similar they were. You look at the stats, very similar outside of the defensive scoring percentage or defensive points per game Houston gives up. You're even. Steals, assists, boards, scoring. This is going to be a war. This is, again, what John Calipari wanted. You have James Madison before you start off at Tennessee, who just blew out Louisville by 20 or 21 or something like that. So this is where we're going to tell just how well this schedule set up, how seasoned this team gets, because come January 3rd on, it's SEC play. You're not going to get any days off. The SEC is deep. Vandy's sitting at the top. You have Georgia, Tennessee, Florida down the road, who's sitting, I think they were 8-4 on the year, but definitely not an 8-4 team. We discussed that on Sunday. Then you have Auburn and Alabama back-to-back. So we know, I think we can say this team won't start off 0-5 in SEC play, but if they do go on a little slip, say they do go 2-3 to start SEC play, how is this team going to rally around each other, knock off the dust? But I go back to this Texas Tech game, the Louisville game. You're winning these games, unlike the Michigan State and Duke game where you're battle tested all game long and you just cannot pull it out. This will be a test on Saturday. Again, another neutral site game, getting you ready for tournament play.
Mm-hmm. Looking at Houston, led by Emmanuel Sharp at 17.2 points per game, Kingston Fleming's 14.8, Milos Uzan at 11.2. So your top three scorers are your guards for Houston. Then you get down to your forwards, 9.5 points per game, 7.4. So I think this is something that matchup wise, you've got to look at Darius Acuff, you've got to look at Malik Thomas, you got to look at DJ Wagner, which DJ has looked in a couple spots, a couple games. He's looked about a step slow. I think this is a game where the guards have to step up defensively, especially in this game, because if your top three scorers for Houston are guards, you're gonna have to man up against them and play some ball. One thing that I worried about with Arkansas is the defense. Yeah, we can score with anybody, but watching that game against Queens earlier in the week, I mean, I get that Queens averaged 84 points per game on the season at that point, or 86, something like that. But to give up 80 points to Queens, I was just kind of like, that kind of, that didn't sit well with me. And I know Queens is a team that likes to shoot 26 to 33s a game, and you hope you knock down 10 or so of them. It's just an unsettling feeling that we're allowing a team like Queens to score 80 points against us. So this is something I think the defensive side of things, Arkansas's got to buckle down a little bit. At the same time, if you're not going to, if their guards are going to have the games that they've had this season, then you just got to outscore their guards. And I think Arkansas is fully capable of that with Malik Thomas and Darius Acuff. And maybe we see it out of DJ Wagner this week. Maybe this is the game to finally get DJ Wagner out of his shell, if you will, a little bit. But at the same time, you need somebody like Carter Knox or Brazil to be able to do what they've been doing. I'd love to see Billy Richmond defensively in this game be the Billy Richmond that we have seen in the past and be relentless, be all over the court, diving for loose balls. Because that's one thing with Carter Knox and Billy Richmond is once they turn defense into offense, both of them get a little spark, get a kick in their step. And I think that that's going to be key for both of them on Saturday.
Yeah. And another thing, Chris Sinak Jr. averaging 9 and 8, let's just say 10 and 8. You can't let him then become, if they are a defensive heavy team, you can't let him have a Brazil type game where he goes off for 20 and then the guards are scoring. They got one big Chris Sinet. He's 6'11". So Lath is 6'10", and for the most part, 6'8", 6'7". They only have one big that's really doing damage when you look at the scoring. And so how is that going to fare against Arkansas? How's Arkansas going to fare against that? It's going to be a different team that you've seen them battle. It's going to be guard heavy. They're used to Boozer, Toppin, really giving them trouble. So this will be a different pace, different test, and you're seeing the scoring. 3 guys, double digits, I guess 4 if you want to round up Sinak to a 10 and 8. They're not a scoring machine, so they are going to rely heavy on shutting down Arkansas. Can they stop Arkansas's firepower? And you are going to need 4 or 5 guys, double digits, to win this game.
Mm-hmm. And let's look back at the Arkansas side. I mean, you got Acuff at 18.2, Brazil at 15, Malik Thomas 14.8. We'll call it 15. Carter Knox 9.8. We'll call it 10. Billy Richmond at 9. DJ Wagner at 8. So I feel like any of these guys, Carter Knox through DJ Wagner, really need to step up this game. And I hope, we get the Malik that we've seen. Both teams are pretty even the free throw line. Arkansas is at 77%, Houston's at 75. So there's not really an edge there. I think this is a game that's going to come down to mental mistakes. Who is going to make more? Who can create more steals? If you're going down to just defense, obviously Houston has the edge. So I think that here, potentially you're going to throw defense out the window, and let's see who can outscore who. But for that to happen, you're going to have somebody else step up for Arkansas.
Yeah, go back to I'm trying to pick. I mean, that's where this game, I mean, outside, let's go in there. Tennessee game. I want to look at their bench scoring. I have not seen anything on there. It's just showing, let's see, bench points 24. So Arkansas had 23. That's what I was looking at of, all right, how is that going to be? Is Arkansas going to take advantage of the bench scoring with Malik Thomas? And if you can get 25 points off your bench, that's going to help you. When you're looking at they're holding teams under 60 points, you get half your points off the bench. That's going to ease that pain. We really need Malik Thomas to step up. He went Lowell. You've had Brazil step up. Acuff's doing his thing. Them having guard heavy, being very good at defense. You're going to need your wings and your posts to really step up. I would love to see Printer Ewan get going and score in double digits to really help out the scoring on Arkansas.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking to see that same Tennessee Houston game. Who was, so it looks like, I mean,
Kingston Fleming's had 25 and Milos Uzan had 17.
Well, and for Tennessee, their guards were their leading scorers. So is this going to be a game that you see like we've seen from Acuff? Or I think that Malik Thomas is going to play with a bit of a chip on his shoulder. Just how he's performing, because he's been frustrated and it's been visible on his face and his body language. And you can tell that even if he is struggling in a slump, whatever, he's going to continue to shoot the ball, which that's what shooters do. Shooters shoot. He's trying to shoot himself out of the slump. So, and as far as we could tell, especially with the last game, I mean, Cal's not telling him to hold off, because I mean, he's still pulling it whenever he sees fit. So I just look at this as, every one of these players is going to go through a streak of games where it's just not their game. And how is he going to get himself out of that now that he is at this collegiate level? And I think that Houston is a game that he can prove to the team, but more importantly, prove to himself that he's here for a reason. He is as high of a recruit coming into the season for a reason. He's a potential, first round NBA draft pick for a reason. So I think that this is a game that Malik Thomas has to look at himself and do whatever he needs to do to get himself back on the other side of things.
Absolutely. Because you got one game left after this before SEC play, and you first game's Tennessee, and they're going to be ready for you. You know that Tennessee is looking at that game. As much as Arkansas struggled last year, they're going to have a target on their back because of Acuff and Thomas. I wouldn't mind seeing, again, another one, Billy Richmond stepping up. DJ Wagner, does he step up if it starts getting where they're giving Acuff and Thomas a little hell? Does DJ Wagner step up and score? The firepower's there. You look at your Knox, Richmond, and Wagner right there approaching 10 points a game. It's there. But you're going to have to score 70 to beat this team. You might have to score 80. But asking somebody to score 20 points above the average of what they're holding, you don't know. But then again, you're looking at the schedule that Houston's played. They haven't played the gauntlet that Arkansas's played. You've played Tennessee, and looking at that, I mean, that looks like that's your toughest game all year. So
New Orleans, Jackson State, Florida State, Notre Dame, ranked Tennessee, Auburn, Syracuse, Rider, Auburn, Oakland. Yeah, I mean, you legit haven't played any teams, and Cal has made Arkansas schedule the way it is for a reason, to know who they are before they get to SEC play.
And Houston, looking ahead on their schedule, they got a 2-game break. I mean, they're playing Arkansas, and then they have Middle Tennessee, Cincinnati before they play Texas Tech on January 6th. So again, both teams are gearing up for conference season. This is going to be your last game before you go off and venture into the heart of your schedule, your conference play. So when these two teams face off on Saturday, 4:30, you'll be able to see that game. It says CBS Paramount Plus, so I'm assuming it will be on.
It's CBS, and you can stream it on Paramount Plus also.
So 4:30 Central Time. This game tip off CBS. So another prime time. How will the college football playoff and all that first round play into viewers? We'll see how that goes from a viewership standpoint. But again, I've told you from the get-go, a lot of these teams playing tough games early on in the year is making college basketball more exciting earlier than usual. And maybe that's just because we're biased from an Arkansas standpoint, because we are so ready for basketball to get rolling. And the hope, we're seeing more and more people starting to transition to basketball, believe in basketball, kind of forget about football for a second. And the pain from that and the changeover and the new coach. Let's see how this bandwagon, I guess you can call it, gets rolling for Arkansas, and see how many people are in the crowd. We're at New Jersey, and we know when they play in New York, big venues, the crowd shows up. They showed up against the, at Texas Tech over the weekend. So I like Arkansas's odds here. I really do, because of just how much Arkansas has been tested. But in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, okay, they've done really well. Is this a team that really keeps that momentum, or is this a setback game? Is this a game where they're just off because, you're getting closer to Christmas break, you're getting closer to SEC play? Are they ready for this game?
I think that they're going to be ready. Cal year 2, I've seen, and I think you have too, and you've seen improvements compared to where they were last year. You've seen a different breed of talent that he's brought in here with these freshmen. So I think that it is going to help guys like Malik Thomas and Darius Acuff, having guys that have returned and that went through that last season, went through the 0-5 stretch, went through some of the struggles that they had early on in the non-conference. I think that it's a good mesh of, not old, because these guys, this is year 2 for this team, or for some of these guys, but mixing old versus new, it benefits both of them. But it especially will help out Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas, Isaiah Sealy, some of the new guys that have come in, having these guys that have been through this before with Coach Cal and already gotten through the struggles with him. So I have a good feeling about Saturday. We'll see if it goes in Arkansas's favor. These games, I'm not a fan of the neutral site games, but I know why Coach Calipari puts them on the schedule. Yes, it gives them a bigger limelight, recruiting hotbeds. It gets you prepared for March Madness, playing in all the different sites that they go in. So I totally see why he's doing it, why he does it. He wants these guys in the spotlight. And yeah, you're competing with a lot on Saturday. You've got the college football playoff. You've got Arkansas's game against Houston. You've got 2 NFL games, one that afternoon, one that evening on Saturday, because the NFL is having their Saturday games as they get closer to the playoffs. So there's a lot on. I still wouldn't be shocked to see if Arkansas, ratings-wise, competes with college football playoff on Saturday, because you got Tulane and Ole Miss playing at the same time.
That's the game. You're not going up against. You're not trying to go up against an OU or Alabama, or these gauntlet games. You're not dealing with the next round. Another thing is too, with the new era of college basketball, NIL, this is going to prove, all right, is this team primed and ready to make a national championship run? The selfishness. I'm not saying any team player or anybody's selfish. I'm just looking at it from an aspect of where we are now. Is this team really ready to play as a team and make a run? Or are they just good with, I'm going to get mine, I know I'm going to the next level, and whatever happens this year, it's just to get me by until I get to the NBA. So you have to have that in the back of your mind of where this team's mindset is, because we know Cal. He's bringing guys in here to go to the NBA. But then again, on the other side of it, he's putting them in position to play tournament-like game settings, because when March rolls around and you're playing these Thursday games at 2:30 in Boise, Idaho or whatever, it's getting you ready for that setting, that game. And that's where we're going to look 2 months from now, 3 months from now, and be like, okay, how did this schedule, this non-conference schedule, help us be ready for these moments, and how do they respond?
I feel like he's got everything. I don't want to say a blueprint, but there's a method to his madness. You know, he has to adjust every year depending on what players' personalities, skill sets, and all that coming in. You know, different for him, different for us, but at the same time, I don't think anybody as a coach more prepared than him to get his team prepared. So it's one of those. It's just who can make the least amount of mental mistakes, I feel like, in this game, and who can essentially keep their cool whenever things go haywire, things get hectic. And I think that that's where somebody like DJ Wagner can really bring these guards back down if they get inside their heads. So it's going to be a big game. It's going to be a tough game. And kind of like we said against Texas Tech, kind of like we've said against Louisville, you know, this is a potential that we're going to see a rematch in the postseason. So it's one of those things, one of those games that I think that Arkansas, Coach Cal, look at and kind of like, hey, we're really going to see where we are and who we are after the non-conference schedule before we go play Tennessee.
Funny thing, too, you lose to Michigan State, you go on a 4-game win streak. You lose to Duke, you're currently on a 4-game win streak. So here we are at Houston. Is this going to break another mold? Is this going to be another thing where we finally get over that hump? Because, you know, you have James Madison Monday the 29th, so you have a 9-day break, and then you got to turn around that Saturday and host Tennessee, Bud Walton Arena at 2 p.m. So this game will tell a lot about all the questions we just asked about where this team is ready. And if they pull this off and win this, say 7-10 points, or even they grind it out, that is going to give a lot of Razorback fans hope going into SEC season and in postseason, not necessarily SEC tournament, but the NCAA tournament. And then you get into March Madness, and that goes into, you know, our next discussion. We're talking about Cinderellas, because Joel Klatt made a hot take that I don't know if his second video, I don't know if he was backtracking on it, doubling down or what, but, you know, talking about Cinderellas, and I know a lot of it coincides with, you know, James Madison and Tulane being in the college football playoff. There's a huge difference between a Cinderella in college football and a Cinderella in college basketball, because you go back to I guess, can you throw TCU in there when they won with Dalton? Could you consider that a Cinderella team?
I feel like it's a little bit difficult when you're in the Big 12.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like you can be considered a Cinderella team. I mean, I truly feel like that. I mean, you've got to come from a mid-major. Like at this point in time, I mean, you've got to be a group of 5, I feel like, to be considered a Cinderella. So, I mean, it would have to be in this mix, James Madison or Tulane. And you're not a Cinderella if you don't get to the next round. So, and do you consider one of those two schools? So if one of those two schools win, are they the Cinderella just because you don't have as many rounds and it's more impressive? Because, you know, we really don't consider Cinderellas in March Madness really until you get to Sweet 16.
Yeah.
So in college football, less teams, less rounds. I mean, are you considered a Cinderella, Tulane or James Madison get to the second round?
I think so, because of the aspect of just nobody is giving anyone a single chance for James Madison and Tulane. They're saying they don't belong. They don't belong. And I get where he is coming from, because there is a big difference between a James Madison and a Tulane playing at football against Oregon and Ole Miss compared to basketball. We've seen it happen so many times every year. You're waiting on the Thursday, Friday game. All right, how many brackets are going to be busted? How many brackets are still going to be intact after that first round? because we've seen it happen. We've seen 14 seeds. We've seen 16 seeds win when we thought it would never happen. You go back to, George Mason. Was it George Mason? I get George Mason. Is that the one that went to the Final Four?
Yeah, George Mason.
You just had so many teams, Loyola, Chicago,
VCU at some point in time.
VCU, University of Maryland, and at the UMBC,
yeah. Florida Gulf Coast at one point in time.
Florida Gulf Coast.
Yeah.
It's happened, but you're going, even if you throw this game, the TCU Wisconsin game, in for argument's sake, that's 2011. Mm-hmm. And then you go back to the Boise State versus Oklahoma.
You have to go to the Fiesta Bowl.
Mm-hmm. To me, but now you look at Boise State is pretty much, they're not anymore, but at that time, at the peak of their program, they were the Gonzaga of college football. And so when you say that Cinderellas are bad for college basketball, I disagree, because you're looking forward to that team. You want to see madness in that first weekend. And then it's almost like cake. You have your cake and eat it too. You have the Cinderellas, and then, okay, we've had our fun. Let's get to the chalk, and let's get to the, but you didn't have much chalk or Cinderellas last year. It was a lot of chalk. So that's where this transfer portal and NIL has come into play. It's a lot of chalk now, outside of McNeese State when they beat Clemson, but you had Will Wade at the helm and his whole team coming and winning. But it's going to be this college football playoff that's coming up this weekend. All games, there's going to be a lot of eyes on, more so I think the Tulane Ole Miss game, because of Lane Kiffin leaving for LSU, and how many people are rooting for Ole Miss to win the national championship because of all the stuff that's going on with the LSU fan base, is saying there's no way in hell that Ole Miss can win a national championship, even if they had Lane Kiffin.
One of the only reasons that I, had previously said, like, I want Ole Miss to win is just for the sake of Lane Kiffin winning. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, I don't care.
Yeah.
I just think it would be hilarious for that to happen. Do I think it's going to happen? No, I'm going to get our picks up here shortly. But it's one of those that if it happens, great. If it doesn't, so be it. I don't care. I just kind of like with basketball, and we saw it in last year's March Madness, you bringing up it being more chalk than Cinderellas. I just don't want to see blowout games. Like, I want to see good contested games, which that's what, with leveling the playing field a little bit. Obviously, it's not as much as I think a lot of folks think, or we even say sometimes, but a little bit more level of a playing field, I think, is what keeps from those blowout wins. But here's the thing with that too, is a lot of that comes down to it's better viewers, better viewership, better ratings, more money. I mean, and that's ultimately, well, I don't know. Is this funky looking? There we go. Let me take off our overlay here. But yeah, like, this is what we've got going. And one of the reasons I switched mine up just a touch was because it was pretty close to yours. And so I just wanted to be a little bit different. So our picks weren't identical like they were for Arkansas's football season. So, in this one, you and I both have stood firm that we think that OU will beat Alabama. I'm saying we're both going with Oregon and Texas Tech. I honestly feel like Texas Tech against Indiana. One reason I picked Texas Tech is just for the simple fact of thinking that they truly pulled the upset. But honestly, if you look at Texas Tech's schedule, they haven't played a whole lot of folks. So it could be a struggle to play. I mean, the Heisman winner. The reason I can't pick Indiana, and of course we didn't know this when we made this. I don't think that the Heisman winner is going to win the national championship.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that usually they get that Heisman curse that they just kind of flame out when it gets to a bowl game or now the playoffs.
Yeah, and mine was, I'm looking at Texas Tech is this year's Indiana. Indiana, everybody, they didn't play anybody, they shouldn't have got in, and they get in, and abysmal performance in the college football playoff. Now you're seeing Texas Tech come in. How are they going to do against Oregon? I think that, Dan Lanning has a great squad, but how does it stack up against going up against Texas Tech and already playing a game? Now, you could flip those because there's a lot of times where all the teams that have played first rounds do very well the following weekend too. And I'll say this, just because, and where my biggest flaw, I think, and I think you can agree with me. The biggest one that I think can throw off this whole bracket is if Alabama just goes on a tear and they go in and beat OU, then they beat Indiana. And they could go to the national championship. They very well could. They just seem very lackluster. It is at OU. It is in Norman. Venables' defense is just crazy. I almost, it's weird, want to switch picks. I won't because I've already got it up. But that's the game that scares me the most of all these games.
And I mean, yeah, luckily for us, that because looking at our picks, and it's something that I think, and we both have it picked this way, and I think could go the opposite, is I think that very easily Miami could beat Texas A&M. Luckily, we both have Ohio State winning that next game on both of them. But I think that this is a game that, Texas A&M losing to Texas, fairly weak SEC schedule for them. I think that's Texas A&M has something to prove, I feel like, after the loss to Texas. But at the same time, playing a team that is as good as Miami, I think that Texas A&M could struggle. So the thing on their side is playing at Kyle Field. So, we'll see what happens there. And that's the only one I truly see out of our first couple rounds. And I'm like, oh, that one could go the other way. But you're 100% right on Alabama. They could easily reel them off. I just feel like the way that they ended the season was a little bit telling in a sense. I just feel like that they're as a whole just not, obviously they're not where they've been years past, but at the same time, I feel like that this is almost, I'm not going to say the end, because I think that DeBoer's a good coach. Alabama's a good, obviously great historically program. They're still a good program. I just think that after this season, we could see a bit of a drop off in the Alabama Crimson Tide football team.
Yeah. And look, you also got to look at Ole Miss. What kind of chip do they have on their shoulder? You lost your coach. You have no, and they got lucky, with this draw of going up first round against Tulane. If you would have put them against, let's say, OU, if you'd have swapped out Ole Miss for Alabama or OU, it could have been Ole Miss, Alabama right out the jump. It could have been OU, Tulane right out the jump. What is the headspace of Ole Miss? They're the biggest team, I think, with the biggest chip on their shoulder.
Look at Tulane. I mean, Summerall's been splitting duty between Florida press conferences, recruiting for Florida, and then coaching Tulane. Is he being 1 foot in, 1 foot out? Has that been a distraction for him? Or are they going to try to, hammer one home for him on his way out? Because, that's something that going from Tulane to Florida, that's a big jump. That's a big deal. So obviously, you're not going to balk at him for making that move. Obviously, it's a bigger issue going from SEC to SEC. You just got to wonder if him splitting duty between Florida and Tulane, is that going to hurt?
Yeah. And, if they do beat Tulane handily, they just, belt ass on Tulane. What does that give them motivation wise going into Georgia, who's rusty? They haven't played in a few weeks. You're coming off, that game against Bama. Where are they at? Where's this team at? And I know Georgia's defense is terrifying. And I think that's why you look at our brackets, and it could very well go either way, because if Georgia's defense gets a hold of Ohio State, barring we're going how our brackets are, Georgia could pull that out. This is going to be a very competitive college football playoff past the first round. I think if you want to, then you could throw in how does Miami come into this? ACC. There's a lot of teams in this that there's a lot of people saying they shouldn't belong.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see this weekend.
Mm-hmm. And I think that this will be, it's kind of one of those things that last year we saw. How are they going to do this in the future? Because, a lot of people didn't think that Boise should have gotten the bye. They tweak things. Here we go. Tweak it again. I just wonder what's going to happen during this playoff stretch that's going to cause more changes next season.
Yeah.
Is this the season that they said, okay, we've got to bump to 16? I know obviously a lot of folks are wanting the 14 to 16 editions because then Notre Dame loses their guarantee of a playoff spot if they finish at whatever ranking. So I think that'll end up happening sooner than later just because of the problems that a lot of coaches and programs have with Notre Dame getting that guarantee. Because you've already heard the coaches that have basically said they don't want to schedule Notre Dame now because of this guarantee.
Yeah.
Let's make their schedule even weaker because of this guarantee. So we'll see what happens. I think that there will be more changes that come. It's just a matter of what's going to happen after this season.
And Alabama getting put in, I think, helped, kind of snuff some of the fire out. Because if they would have put both Miami and Notre Dame in and Alabama would have been left out, I guarantee you that it would have been all hell would have broke loose, and it would have been, we're definitely going to 16 teams. That's why I was like, okay, they're going to keep Alabama out, and Alabama's going to win all this stuff to make sure that they go to a 16-team playoff. And you're still dealing with the same thing as if the automatic qualifiers and stuff. So that's the biggest thing. I think if they keep it at 12, get rid of the automatic qualifier. You want to keep your automatic qualifier, go to 16. I think that's the biggest thing, because those teams that are on the cusp, the ones that you look at this year and how many teams, you're going to a 9-game schedule. So now we're going to see tougher conference schedules. You're going to have a lot more teams now. Instead of 1 loss, 2 losses, they're going to have 2 and 3 losses. Mm-hmm. So you're going to really, whoever's on the committee next year is going to have their work cut out for them more, because there's going to be a lot more teams with losses, and you're going to sit there and really try to depict on who really deserves to get in. And again, I think they go to 16 teams to really give them some leeway, some breathing room on getting the right teams in for this college football playoff.
All we can look forward to next season is more blunders like this.
6, 7.
We'll see what he can do between now and next season to see how much more he wants to embarrass himself.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick 30-second break here. Word from our sponsor, Vision Exterior. After we come back, we're going to talk a little high school football. Conference reclassification is back. We'll talk about Shiloh Christian mainly being a 6A team, moving up to 7A for the private school. I know private school, public school has been a big conversation for years now. And then we'll round out the show with Harding playing for the D2 Nationals Championship against Ferris State in McKinney, Texas on Saturday. We'll be right back after a break. Looking to enhance your home's curb appeal? Look no further than Vision Exteriors. As your trusted roofing, siding, and exterior experts, we're here to transform your property. Our skilled team ensures your job is not only functional, but also aesthetically pleasing. Along with roofing, we also offer window, gutter, and siding installation to boost your home's appearance with our quality options. Visit us at www.visionexteriors.com or call us at 479-397-4770. Let's make your vision a reality. And welcome back to Hawg Talk Podcast. We'll dip down to high school ranks, and with the high school football season over, basketball is going. The reclassification has came out, and man, I tell you what, Shiloh Christian, I remember in the 90s, they were a 2A school. Now you look all these years later, and I say late 90s, back when Josh Floyd was the quarterback. Then you go to SMU coach, and now here we are, 7A school. I don't like it. I don't like the fact that the competitive thing on top of 1.5, I think they still have the 1.5 qualifier on there with their enrollment. But there's just a lot of things. We said before the show, Greenwood plays for the state championship game. They get bumped down because of enrollment. And then you go into Shiloh, you bump them up because you're just saying they're too good for 6A. I don't understand it.
I looked at this, and the first thing that came to mind to me was the Greenwood move. You're in the state title game in 6A. You lose your first game in the season or in however many seasons, and you bump back down to 5A. I feel like, and somebody can tell me if I'm wrong or out of line here, but I feel like that there was some politics, policing, if you will, some to bump them back down to where they could play in a weaker conference.
Because Kane Archer's gone, so what happens to that team?
Oh, I feel like that. I mean, Greenwood's just going to reload, like they do. I'm not saying that they have the next Kane Archer on their hands, but I just look at this like the Greenwood, while it may look, hey, they downgraded, they went down to the lower classification. I feel like that they were handed the prize. It was just like, hey, you lost the state title game, so we're going to help you out, and we're going to bump you down to 5A, make it a little bit easier for you to win the state title, make you look better, whatever the case may be. I have no issues with Shiloh moving up. I don't know how their fan base, mainly I know it's the parents that are a little bit vocal about where they go and who they play and school choice and things of that nature. One of the glaring things to me that I didn't like, and I said this previously on a past show a year or two ago, that I think it's ridiculous for Northside to play in the Central.
Yeah.
To move them out of the West to the Central is completely ridiculous. I'm honestly shocked that they didn't bump Northside down to 6A just because of the past couple of seasons, especially going 0-10 last season. But, keeping Southside 6A, keeping Northside 7A, but moving Northside back to the Central. There's no rhyme or reason for Northside to ever be in the Central. I believe that when Northside and Southside were both in 6A or 7A previously, and they kept Southside in the West and Northside to the Central, I felt like it was politics then on, hey, we're going to move one to the Central and keep one in the West so that they could potentially have better shots, maybe in their respective conferences or divisions. I just look at this and I feel like there's too many hands in the pot.
Mm-hmm.
There's too much going on. I still believe that there's no reason for the state of Arkansas to play 7A. And I've thought that since they introduced 7A. I think it's ridiculous. So I don't think there's any rhyme or reason for this. I think that there's way too much movement. I don't like the fact that you have different sports in different conferences. I think that that's ridiculous, just like with Notre Dame sports, but then they're in whatever conference in basketball, but then they're independent in football. I think it being all over the place is just way too much.
Yeah.
Find one conference.
Different ways with that. Like you look at like Ozark per se, you're playing a 4A football schedule, and then you go to basketball and you go from playing, say a Mina or Boonville or Clarksville, Dardanelle, to basketball, you're playing Farmington, Harrison, Morrilton. You're playing a 4A, 5A hybrid. And, they kind of went back away from that. But there is so much growth in Central Arkansas and Northwest Arkansas. And there's a lot of these Haas Hall academies. There's a lot of these private schools that are in the 1A that just play basketball that, the cutoff numbers of, okay, this many schools – they just play basketball, and then they go up into 2A that have the football and basketball. You look at the growth. Look at Pea Ridge. Look at Farmington. Look at Elkins. Prairie Grove. Did I mention Pea Ridge?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Pea Ridge. You look at the growth in Northwest Arkansas and what it's done to those schools. Greenwood. And you know very well how this is going to go. When they brought in Greenwood and they had the school choice and they built that new subdivision at Riley Farms, they let Greenwood annex that. So, Southside shot themselves in the foot on that part because Southside could have had all those kids in that whole, Fort Chaffee, Riley Farms area, but now they're Greenwood. And then school choice, people just going right down the road. Look at Bauxite, who Ozark played a 4A. They're right across the interstate from Bryant. So these literally, you drive by Bryant Stadium to get to Bauxite Stadium. And so you're seeing the kids, okay, I'm not going to get much playing time for a Bryant, so I'm going to go over to Bauxite. You're looking at the quality of play. Little Rock Mills, a team in Little Rock in the 4A, 5A. Then on the reverse side of that, look at Dardanelle, look at a Clarksville, look at Huntsville, look at Northside, a heavily Hispanic populated area. They're getting a lot of kids in the school, and they're moving them up because of their numbers. But Clarksville could honestly be a 3A school because of the competitive play that the teams are. And you're seeing teams like Huntsville, Prairie Grove. Look at Dardanelle next year if they move up to 5A and they don't have Creed Vega. How is that team going to compare against a Greenwood now or a Farmington or a Harrison? It's almost unfair, some of these schools.
Mm-hmm. And then, like Northwest Arkansas, with all the Walmart transplants, you have these kids going, starting off at, say, Bentonville or Bentonville West or Rogers or Spring, all these different schools. And rather than, let's say, compete for a spot, because these kids do have talent, they're going to Farmington or Greenland. They're going to these smaller schools around. It's one of those things. I wonder at what point, and maybe I'm off base with this, but so your private schools, y'all want to be a private school. You don't like the school choice rule that was going on. At what point do they just say, "Hey, private schools, y'all just worry about playing each other.
Yeah,
we're good"? Because I look at this at some point in time, I just kind of feel like between the private and the public schools that there's going to be a line drawn in the sand and be like, "Hey, you know what? Like, we're not going to schedule you anymore."
Yeah.
Just because there has been a lot of issues that have came up with when it came to the school choice.
Yeah. Well, another thing to think about too, the growth in Northwest Arkansas. Look at how many towns, Lowell, Bella Vista, Cave Springs, Highfill. There's another one, Elm Springs. There's towns that are growing. They have no schools at all. Towns that are, Cave Springs and Elm Springs, Highfill, Bella Vista, all of them are going to a Bentonville or a Springdale or a Farmington or a Fayetteville. They're going to Harbor. They're not going, they don't have a school. And I think they built Bentonville West and Centerton because of that. They wanted to have something, but now you're seeing a team like Gravette go up to a 5A because of their growth. And so you're going to see more growth and we're going to see more of these problems. It's not going to get any better because you're going to see the explosion of these towns, and what once was a 2A school is now a 5A, 6A school. That's just how many people's coming into these areas. And along with on the other side, where like you look at Central Arkansas, you have all these towns there, they have schools there, and when I was living on the Air Force Base in Little Rock, we had magnet schools. They would come on the air base and take you into Little Rock, go to school. So where are all those kids going to go to school? They're already fighting, farming, or Fayetteville's landlocked. There's not enough land to build another high school there. So they're happening to go to a Farmington or a Prairie Grove. Greenland and West Fork, they're not there yet. You've seen Elkins grow. They're going to start going down towards Greenland and West Fork. And let's see how those teams, if they start going up 4A, 5A, then you're going to be in a real pickle of how you do this in these conferences and these schedules. And you're going to see it a lot more. And that's where it's going to get bad as a team, where you have all these teams in Northwest Arkansas, all these kids playing against, you can look back in the day, a Decatur, these teams are just getting blown out because the competition level is just not fair. And there's just more kids that are going to these schools every year.
I feel like kind of like with completely different situations and scenarios, but similar in how things were executed. I feel like what they're doing with Arkansas high school sports, with all the conferences, the school choice, the level of competition rule, all that. I feel like it's kind of like college sports and NIL transfer portal. It's like, hey, we're going to implement this, but we don't know how it's going to go. We're going to try to change it on the fly, but we really can't police it that great. And so every year, every 2 years, we're just going to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks.
And it goes back to our original conversation, Cinderellas.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a 2A school or a 3A school in basketball compete because you only need a couple of guys. Size, when you're looking at a 5A squad or a 6A squad against a 2A, you're seeing size and the line and the speed, the athletes. It's much harder to pull off the upsets because of the size and of the offensive line, defensive line. There's no chance for those athletes to really get going. Opposed to basketball, you're rolling the ball out on the court and you're going. And that's where a lot of that comes into play. Like you could tell the size difference between a 3A school and a 5A school. You can't necessarily tell that on a basketball squad.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best girl squads in the state right now is a 1A school at Earl. And that's insane to think. But back when I was in school at Ozark 2A school at the time was one of the best. They were playing with Northside and they were ranked third in the nation at the time. You just have a better chance at basketball of being able to come out and ball out. You look at the smaller teams like at Bergman and around Harrison, always really good. And you're seeing teams that are smaller, they have more success because you have 2 girls on that team or 2 kids on that team scoring 20, 25 points a game. That's going to get you far. But we'll round out the show.
Audio's cutting out.
Oh, audio's cutting out. Okay. Moving on, round out the show. Harding Academy.
Yeah, it's like frozen.
Yours is frozen. I hear you. I'll round it out. Harding Academy will be playing for the D2 National Championship against Ferris State this Saturday in McKinney, Texas. Looking at these stats, Harding averaging 446 yards a game on the ground, 87 rushing touchdowns for the year. Adam, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now.
Okay. Harding is averaging 35 yards passing a game.
I mean, that's going back to like triple option stuff. Dude. Like there's nothing going in the air.
School Ties, isn't that old school movie where they're switching?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. But then you go to Ferris State. They're 15-0 on the year. They are averaging 53.5 points a game, 204 yards passing, and rushing. They're averaging 310 yards rushing a game. So it's going to be a war. Ferris State, they had Trinidad Chambliss on their team last year, and they beat Harding last year. So it's going to be a rematch of last season. So, again, you can see that game. Let me get the schedule pulled up real quick. It will be at 4:00, and I think you could see it on ESPN2. I think Harding has it on their website. Yeah, ESPN2 at 3 p.m. You can watch that game on ESPN2. So check in Harding. Hopefully they get revenge and win a national championship against Ferris State.
We'll see what happens. Go for
Adam,
it.
you got anything else?
No, just
the situation with Lindsay, and you're hungry. Yes, I tried to keep it down this time. Adam got a little angry on Sunday's show. I went a little long-winded talking about went down a rabbit hole about Clemson and Arkansas being a similar athletic program. So
much better tonight.
Much better tonight.
We're good.
But we'll be back. Hawg HQ Sunday.
Yes.
Okay. All right, guys. 6:05. We're transitioning. If you notice, guys, we're usually on our Facebook pages and stuff. We're really trying to stream all of our stuff on YouTube now and Twitter. So if you're not have a chance to watch us on Facebook, click the link, the QR code to take you to our YouTube stream. Go over and give us a like, a follow, send the stars, send those likes. What was DP say? Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Yes. Tell a friend, tell a friend.
Yeah.
I got the hashtags.
There we go. Because we would really appreciate all the new followers and subscribers. Goes a long ways to help us out here. And so we'll have our shows on Sunday, and then we will not have a show till the following Sunday-ish. Maybe that next Sunday is still up in the air, depending on how things go. But everybody tune in Sunday. For Adam Hall, I'm Porter Hayes, and we will catch you on Sunday.